ॐ दक्षिणास्य समारम्भा शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमा अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ता स्मर्या गुरुपरम्परा श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। परिज्ञानाश्रम श्रीगुरुशङ्कर परिज्ञानाश्रम शङ्कर सद्गुरु केशववामन कृष्णपाण्डुरङ्ग आनन्द परिज्ञानगुरु सद्यो जात शङ्कर सद्गुरुः गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ नमो भगवते वैवस्वताय मृत्यवे ब्रह्मविद्याचार्याय नचिकेतसे च। Now, we already saw in the Akhyayika, we are still in the very first chapter and the first section, in which the Akhyayika or the story is still going on, where Nachiketa has reached the Yamaloka and he has gone in the service of Yama, and because he was made to wait for 3 nights, Yamadharmaraja, to atone for his omissions of keeping a Brahmana Atiti going without food and without water and without sleep for 3 nights, he offers to fulfill three varas. He gives him three boons, who Yamadharmaraja gives Nachiketa three boons. And we saw that in the first boon, Nachiketa asked for the well being of his father, because Nachiketa also is worried as to what would have happened to the emotional state of his father, and for the emotional and psychological well being of the father. Nachiketa asks for the first boon, where he asks that his father should be Vita Shokaha, Vita Ragaha, Shanta Sankalpaha, Sumana. That means he should be without any kind of agitation or disturbance of the mind, and he should be peaceful, and he should be able to sleep well in the nights. That is what he asked for. And in the second boon, and of course, Yamadharmaraja gives in to his first boon and says, yes, I have granted you this boon, and your father is going to be perfectly all right, and he's going to recognize you. When you are released from me, the Mrityuloka, and when you go back to the Bhuloka, to your father is going to recognize you as his son who left him before he went to Mrityuloka. So you don't have to worry about your father, and after seeing you, your father will be very happy and have very peaceful sleep in the nights. That was what was given as a promise for fulfilling the first boon of Nachiketa, which was offered by Yamadharmaraja. In the second boon, what did Nachiketa choose? Nachiketa chose to ask for the purpose of those people. It was not for himself. The second boon also, Nachiketa did not ask for himself. He asked for this boon so that people in Bhuloka who are trying to attain higher lokas or Swargaloka by doing various kinds of yagas and yajnas. And Nachiketa wanted that from the horse's mouth, that is from Yamadharmaraja himself, as to what would be the ideal yajna, or what would be the ideal kind of a ritual for a human jiva to attain higher lokas like the Swargaloka after death. And of course, Yamadharmaraja talked to him about a particular karma, and an upasana. So we have to understand one thing here. Our scriptures in the Karma Kanda talk about two kinds of rituals. One is a karma or a ritual without any upasana. That is, there is no upasana done there. There is no deity for whom an upasana is done, or there is no worship of a particular devata. A mere karma is done. And what our scripture says, the karma phala for a person who has done mere karma in the form of a mere ritual without combining it with upasana will attain no doubt higher lokas, but they are not the highest of the lokas. And if you remember, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talked about two gatis in the 8th chapter. He said there are two gatis or two paths which a karmi and an upasaka take. A person who has done enough of karma, a person who has done a lot of these rituals, 5 rituals, yagas, yajnas, and karmas, a person who has done, but without combining the karma with upasana, such a person attains higher lokas through what is called as a Krishna Gatihi or the smoky path. He said very clearly, if you go back to the 8th chapter, Dve Gati, Krishna talks about two types of travels for people who have done karma and upasana. He says, Krishna says, not only Krishna, all our scriptures, even there is an Upanishad called as Ishavasya Upanishad also, which also talks about this. And the purpose of the Shruti here is, the purpose of the Veda Purva here is that a person who does mere karma for attaining higher lokas travels via a path called as the Krishna Gati and no doubt reaches higher lokas. But those lokas are not really the higher lokas which a person would love to be in. So, what should a person do if he wants to attain Svargaloka, Brahmaloka, higher lokas? It is said that a person should combine this karma with an upasana. Karma and upasana. The karma in the form of a fire ritual, upasana in the form of worship of a particular deity or devata. So here also, what has Lord Yama done here? Lord Yama teaches Nachiketa a fire ritual called as the Nachiketagni, which we already saw that. He explains to him as to what is that Agni. And I told you in the last session as to what is the meaning of Agni. Agni means the fire itself, how the fire is kindled, what kind of a fire is kindled, how it is established or sthapana is done in the Yajna Kunda. All these are, those details which are connected with the very fire which is required in the fire ritual. The second meaning of Agni, he says in the previous one, Agnim, that Swargyam Agnim. I'm going to give you that Swargyam Agnihi. He says in the 14th verse, Yama, Prate Bravimi Tadume Niboda Swargyam Agnim Nachiketaha. Hey Nachiketa, that Swargyam Agnihi. I'll tell you, I will teach you that Agni which will take you to higher lokas. Here, of course, Nachiketa has not asked this for himself, but he has asked this for the benefit of those people who are in the Bhuloka and who are trying to do these rituals to attain higher lokas. So, what does Yamadharmaraja do? He talks to him about how a particular Agni has to be kindled, how the particular ritual has to be done, and which is the Devata that has to be worshipped along with this fire principle. So, the three meanings for the Agnis here is the fire itself is the first meaning of Agni, then the ritual itself as to how the ritual is to be done, what is the harvest that is to be put in the ritual in the Agni Kunda, and what kind of, in what part of the Agni, in what part, which part of the fire this harvest is given. So, this entire modus operandi or how the particular this particular yajna or the ritual is conducted. That is the second meaning of the word Agni. The third meaning of Agni, Swargyam Agni, means which is the devata that is supposed to be propitiated, that is to be worshipped along with this fire ritual. So Bhagwan Yamadharmaraja talks to him and tells him how many ishtakas means how many bricks are to be used, how they are used, in what formation the bricks have to be used, how the fire has to be kindled, where the fire has to be kindled, where the fire stapana has to be done in the yajna kunda, what kinds of harvests or offerings have to be offered. And he talked also about the devata. We saw that in the 15th verse in the last session. लोकादिम अग्निम तमुवाच तस्मै. Lokadim Agnim. That means who is the deity or who is the devata who is worshipped along with this fire principle. And it is said that for this particular principle, Virat, I explained also last time, Virat Devata. What is Virat Devata? Samashti Sthula Sharira Rupi Ishvara. Ishvara in the form of Samashti Sthula Shariram. Samashti Annamaya Kosha, Samashti Sthula Shariram is called as Virat Devata. We have already seen that in Viveka Chudamani also. Vishwa, the Vyashti Annamaya or the Vyashti Sthula Sharira Abhimani Devata is called as Vishwa, this Atma, which has the upadhi of the Sthula Sharira is called as Vishwa, and that counterpart Samashti Ishvara with the Samashti Sthula Prapancha Upadhi is called as Virat. So Vishwa Virat combination we saw when we talked about Atma Anatma Viveka, where in Viveka Chudamani. So here also Yamadharmaraja says that, hey Nachiketa, these are the number of bricks that have to be used. This is the shape in which the bricks have to be arranged. This is how the Yajna Kunda has to be created. And this is how the particular ritual has to be conducted, and the devata who's to be worshipped, and the upasana for which devata is to be done here along with this Agni Karma, it is nothing but the Virat Devata. So Lokadim Agnim Tamuvacha Tasmai Ya Ishtaka Yavatirva Yathava Sachapi तत् प्रत्यवदत् यथोक्तम अथास्य मृत्यु पुनरेव आह तुष्टः. So all these things were given the details. Of course, the Upanishad does not talk about the details. Even we don't need to know the details. All these details about this particular ritual, along with the Virat Devata as the Upasya Devata for this particular ritual, are very clearly mentioned in the Veda Purva. And what does Nachiketa do? He repeats the whole thing very, very clearly to the teacher Yama. And Yamadharmaraja is Tushtaha. He is very happy that he has found a student in Nachiketa who has such a Grahana Shakti and Dharana Shakti that all these details about what is the type of Agni, what is the type of ritual, and what is the Devata that has to be propitiated, all these things that were given in detail by Yamadharmaraja to Nachiketa in the form of that ritual which takes a person who has performed this ritual along with the upasana. So the karma along with the upasana which leads a person to higher lokas or swarga lokas. This is what is called as the Swargyam Agnihi. The ritual which leads this person, the person who has conducted or done this ritual, to the higher lokas like Swarga Loka. And after having given up, literally, given up means what? The student, Nachiketa, the Shishya, has repeated everything word by word very clearly as the teacher had taught him. See, in those days, there was no question of writing down anything, no question of recording something and listening later. There had to be enough of dharana shakti and grahana shakti, which had to be the qualifications of a shishya. So it shows us here the qualifications of Nachiketa. Though he is a 8-year-old boy, Brahmana boy, a Vedika boy, his Grahana Shakti and Dharana Shakti are so strong, so sharp, that he is able to repeat whatever the Guru has talked to him about this particular ritual. And Yamadharmaraja is so happy that he offers him two gifts. That is what we saw in the 16th verse last time. So, what are the gifts that he offered? Tam abravit priyamano mahatma varam tave hadya dadami bhuyaha tavaiva namna bhavat bhavitayam agnihi srinkam cheman aneka rupam grahana. So, what did Yamadharmaraja say? He was so happy. He said that henceforth, this fire ritual, along with the Virat Upasana, which helps a human jiva to reach Swargaloka or higher lokas, will be called by your name. We don't know whether it had a name earlier or not, we don't know. But Yamadharmaraja says, henceforth, this ritual, along with this upasana, this combination of ritual with upasana, will be known by your name as Nachiketagni. Even now, in the Karma Kanda, you'll find this ritual by the name of Nachiketagni. Therefore, this ritual, along with the Upasana, will be known by your name. This is the first gift I'll give you out of happiness. I'm happy that you have received the teaching so well and you are able to repeat whatever I told you. I'm so happy that I'm going to give you these two gifts in addition to the three varas that I have given you. The first gift is that this ritual with the upasana, with the Virat upasana, will be known by your name called as Nachiketagni. Not only that, I'm going to give you this very, very precious mala. Probably Yamadharmaraja is wearing a mala made of precious stones. So, Srinkam cha imam aneka rupam grahana. Aneka rupam shrinkam. Aneka rupam means this mala which has got beads of various colors, of different colors. So accept this mala, aneka rupam, different varnas, different colors. What is the meaning of different colors? Each precious stone has a different color. That means this mala, which has got different colored precious gems, please accept this mala. Grahana, accept this mala, he says. Now, what does Nachiketa do with this mala is going to be talked about later. It is going to be talked about in the next section, not even in this section. Nachiketa is not really interested in either going to the higher worlds like heaven, nor is he interested in anything else worldly. That we are going to understand later. Vairagyam of Nachiketa at the age of 8 years or 9 years, we are going to see later in the same section, in the later mantras, we'll see that Nachiketa is not in any way influenced by what Yamadharmaraja tries to offer him. Nachiketa wants for himself something totally different. And that is going to be talked about when we come to the third boon. Now we are still in the second boon. So, what happens now? The Upanishad comes and says here in the 17th verse. Now, already this boon has been granted. This Agni, which is necessary for a human being to attain higher lokas after death, has already been granted by Yamadharmaraja to Nachiketas, and it is expected that Nachiketa will probably teach this Agni when he goes back to the Bhuloka. That is what is expected out of this teaching of Yamadharmaraja. Then now comes, what is the phalam of this Agni, Nachiketa Agni? And this phalam is given by the Shruti, it is given by the Upanishad. And what is the phalam? That this karma with the Upasana, Virat Upasana, this Nachiketa Agni ritual associated with or combined with Virat Upasana, what kind of a phala it is going to give to this person who has done this particular karma upasana samuchaya. Samuchaya means what? A combination of karma and upasana. So here the Shruti comes and says, त्रिनाचिकेतास्त्रिभिरेत्य सन्धिं त्रिकर्मकृत्तरति जन्ममृत्यु ब्रह्मजज्ञं देवमीड्य विदित्वा निचाये मां शान्तिमत्यन्तमेति. Now you may ask, how do you know that the deity which was to be worshipped along with this karma is Virat? Two places here, two words are going to indicate to us that the deity in question, that is the Upasya Devata here, along with this Agni, this ritual, one Lokadim Agnim, which was in the 15th verse which we saw. Lokadim Agnim. That is who? The Samashti Sthula Sharira Abhimani Ishvara Virat. And here also in the third line, Brahmajagnyam Deva Medium. Brahmajagnyam means the Virat or the Samashti Sthula Sharira or the Samashti Sthula Prapancha. So here this Devata is Samashti Sthula Prapancha Abhimani Ishvaraha, or what we called as Virat or Vaishwanara. Now the phalam is being talked about here. Let us see the first line. Trinachiketaha sthibiretya sandhim. Tribhihi yetya sandhim. Now we have to understand here that whenever a particular ritual is done by a particular person and upasana which is to be done, it is said that the person has to be under very good influence. A person who does these rituals along with the upasana is expected to have very, very positive influence from three sources. That is what our Upanishads also say. Brahadaranyaka Upanishad says, Matruman, Pitruman, Acharyaman, Bruyat. Our scriptures say that a person who has to get the right phalam of whatever ritual he has done. A person, if he has to get the right result for whatever upasana he has done. A person who does a karma upasana samuchaya like Nachiketagni with Virat upasana, if he has to get the desired phalam, he should have had the positive influence from three sources. That is what he says here. Tribhihi etya sandhim. The one who has had the influence of these three people in his life. Who are the three people who would have influenced this person positively and given some kind of a vidya, some kind of samskaras, some kind of education to this person, who makes this person fit enough to receive the phalam of any of the yagas or yajnas or rituals that have been done. Our Upanishads say that such a person has to be Matruman, Pitruman, Acharyaman. What is the meaning of that? It means that a person has to have a positive influence of the mother, the father, and the acharya or the guru, and a person who has grown up under the positive influence of the mother, the father, and the acharya. That is why the mother is called as the first guru, and before the child goes to the Gurukulam, it is the father who gives him the initial training in the Vedas. And next, when the child goes to the Gurukulam, it is the Guru. Therefore, our scriptures say that a person is a fully prepared person for this knowledge, either the Veda Purva knowledge or Vedanta knowledge. A person has to have gone through or should have passed through three important positive influences in his life, in his or her life. And what are those three influences? The positive influence of the mother, the father, and the acharya. So he says the first condition is tribhihi yetya sandhim. The first line, the second part of the first line in the verse number 17. We are seeing the verse number 17 now, and in which he says tribhihi yetyah sandhim. This person who has had the influence of these three people in his life. Then in the next line he says, Trikarmakrit, Trikarmakrit Tarati. Trikarmakrit. Who is Trikarmakrit? The one who has done, who would have done three types of karmas. The person who would have done three types of karmas. What are these three types of karmas? That is, worship he should have done. That is the first thing. Then there should puja or worship. Then there should be adhyayanam. A person should have done adhyayanam of the Vedas. Thirdly, he should have done the danam or contribution. What does it mean? This is a person who has done the Pancha Mahayajnas, Deva Yajna in the form of worship, and he should have done Adhyayana, Brahma Yajna or Rishi Yajna in the form of study of the Vedas, and he should have done Danam, Danam in the form of Manushya Yajna. So this is the second condition. So three conditions he talks about Yamadharmaraja. For a person to get the right result, the expected result out of this ritual of Nachiketagni. So, what are the three conditions? The first condition is Tribhihi Yetya Sandhim, the one who has gone through the positive influence, the positive samskaras from mother, father, and the acharya. Secondly, Trikarmakrit. Trikarmakrit means what? The person who has done worship, the study of the Vedas, at least studied means chanting of the Vedas, and who has done enough of Danam. So the one who has studied Veda Purva doesn't matter. Study of the Vedas, who has done the Danam, and who has done enough of worship. This is the second condition. The third condition is Trinachiketaha, the one who has done this ritual three times. So Nachiketagni ritual has to be done three times, not just once. It has to be done three times. And this Nachiketagni involves what? It involves not only the karma or the ritual, but it involves the worship of Virat Devata also. So the three conditions he talks about. This person has to kindle the Nachiketagni and do the Nachiketagni ritual three times, and this person has to have or should have undergone a positive influence of Mata, Pita, and Acharya. Matraman, Matraman, Pitruman, Acharyaman. Third thing is he should have been a Trikarmakrit. He should have done worship, puja, worship, and then study of the Vedas, at the same time Danam also. So a person who fulfills these conditions, Tarati Janma Mrityu, second line, last two words, Tarati, goes beyond Janma Mrityu. That means what? He goes to the highest lokas. And what is the Swarga Loka here meant? Brahma Loka. We have already talked about Brahma Loka in Bhagavad Gita also, in the chapter 8. What is Brahma Loka? What is Shukla Gati? What is Krishna Gati? A person who merely does karmas goes through Krishna Gati, through that path called as Krishna Gati, to higher lokas, but not to the highest. But a person who combines karma with upasana after death leaves the body through the Shuklagati and reaches the Brahmaloka. We have already studied that in the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So, here also, what Yamadharmaraja is saying is a person who has kindled this Nachiketa three times and with the other two conditions, who has done the upasana of the Virat Devata along with this ritual, will reach the highest loka, Brahmaloka, Janma Mrityu Tarati temporarily. It is not total immortality because Lord Krishna himself says, Abrahma Bhuvanat Lokat Punaravartino Arjuna. Hey Arjuna, Abrahma Bhuvana Lokaha. From Brahma Loka onwards, every field of experience comes back again and again and again. But Brahmaloka, the person stays in Brahmaloka till the end of this particular Srishti. So it is Apekshika Amritatvam, not Atyantika Amritatvam. I talked about it in the previous session as to what is the meaning of immortality here. Only immortality is once I know Aham Brahmasmi, that is the Paramarthika Amritatvam. But for any other reason, any upasana, any karma, or any upasana can give rise to only apekshika amritatvam or temporary amritatvam in higher lokas. What is the meaning of temporary amritatvam? Long periods of time I will be there in that particular higher loka. Because as Nachiketa said, in those lokas, in higher lokas, in Svargaloka, Lord Yama or Mrityu Devata has no entry. Jara has no entry. Mrityu has no entry. Roga has no entry. Therefore, all these higher worlds, we can call them Janma Mrityu Tarati. That means, like here in the Martya Loka, like here in our earthly existence, where we are born and dead in a matter of just a few years. It is not like that. In all those lokas, a person exists for maybe thousands, millions of years, and in Brahmaloka, it is almost till the end of this particular creation. So he says, Janna Mutyu Tarati Brahma Jagnyam Deva Medium Deva Media Viditva. How does he do that? Having worshipped this Brahma Jagnyam, Virat Devatam Idya. Idya means worship. After having worshipped along with this Nachiketagni, having worshipped, combining this Nachiketagni, combining it with Upasana on Virat, what does he do? Knowing this Lord Viditva, Nichaya Imam Shantim Atyantameti. He reaches the higher lokas where there is this apekshika shanti. It is not the paramarthika shanti, the ultimate immortality, ultimate shanti, ultimate amritatvam is only once I understand aham brahmasmi. Jnanam alone, Brahma Jnanam alone, abiding in Atma Jnanam alone gives Paramarthika or the ultimate immortality. All the other higher lokas are Apekshika Amritatvam. This we have to understand very clearly. All the Vedapurva rituals which give us the higher lokas will give us only a temporary immortality. An immortality probably lasting for thousands of years, millions of years, or maybe till the end of this particular Srishti. But otherwise, Atyantika or Paramarthika Amritatvam is only the result of or the phalam of Brahmajnanam. So here the phalam of this particular ritual that is given already. Then in the 18th verse also the same result is repeated by the Shruti but in a little different way. The same thing is talked about. 18th verse. त्रिनाचिकेतस्त्रयमेतत् विदित्वा य एवं विद्वान् चिनुते नाचिकेतं समृत्युपाशान् पुरतः प्रणोद्य शोकातिगो मोदते स्वर्गलोके. It is the same thing. What we saw in the 17th verse is being repeated in different words by the Shruti. Trinachiketaha trayametat viditva. The person who satisfies these three conditions, Matraman, Pitruman, Acharyavan, Purusha, number one, then what he does, Trikarmakrit, the one who has worshipped the Lord, the one who has studied or adhyanam of the Vedas, and the one who has done the Danam, Trikarmakrit, and three times who does this ritual, Trinachiketa, three times who does this. Yayevam Vidwan. This person is called as a Vidwan here. Here a Vidwan is not a Jnani. Here the Vidwan is an Upasaka. He's an Upasaka. Of course, right now, you may wonder why all things are being talked about. Maybe for us, at present, these things do not make much of a sense because we are not following these kind of yajnas and yagas anymore. But we are talking about an Upanishad, and in the Upanishadic times, the yajnas and yagas had a great importance. Veda Purva had a great importance. That is why in every Upanishad, the initial one or two chapters talk about Upasana and Karma. Later on, only the actual Jnana Kandam of the Upanishad starts. The Jnanam portion of the Upanishad starts. And here, in this Upanishad also, for the next about 2 3 verses, till about the 21st or 22nd verse, the Karma Upasana is being talked about. It may not make much of a meaning to us, but then, since it's a part of the Upanishad, we have to understand what is being told by the Upanishad in the form of the phalam for this Nachiketagni ritual. So the 18th verse also is talking about a similar result, but here he says, Ya evam vidvan chinute nachiketam. This Upasaka and Karmi who goes through the ritual of the Nachiketagni, Samrityu Pashan Purataha Pranodya. He gets out of the Mrityu Pasha. He gets out of the bondage of Mrityu, Jara Mrityu. Shokatigo Modate Swargaloke. Shokatigo. He crosses the Shoka, not ultimate Shoka. Even ultimate Shokan Tarati Atmavit, it is said. Tarati Shokam Atmavit. Actual shoka is passed, completely bypassed only by jnanam. But in the higher lokas, definitely the shoka is not as much as in bhuloka here. The person who has reached the higher lokas does not have sorrow as much as in bhulokas. It's all relative. The higher lokas compared to the bhuloka, it's all relative. But abrahma bhuvana lokaha punaravartinaha, all these lokas come back again and again. So, any of the jivas in any of these lokas, they are not going to enjoy atyantika or paramarthika shokanivritti, nor atyantika or paramarthika amritatvam. This very clearly we have to understand. Then, in the 19th verse now, Yamadharmaraja comes again and he reminds Nachiketa, येषते अग्निर्नचिकेतः स्वर्ग्यः यमव्रणीथा द्वितीयेन वरेण ये तमग्निं तवैव प्रवक्ष्यन्ति जनास तृतीयं वरं नचिकेतो वृणीष्व. So now Yamadharma Raja comes again here. The 17th and 18th verses, it is the Shruti or the Upanishad is talking about the karma phalam of Nachiketagni. Doing this Nachiketagni ritual along with Virat Upasana, the karma Upasana Samuchaya. Now Yamadharmaraja, the teacher, comes back again and says, Hey Nachiketa, येषः ते अग्निः स्वर्ग्यः यमव्रणीथा द्वितीयेन वरेण. Dvitiyena varena. By the second boon, whatever that Swargyam Agni you asked for, this ritual which will help people in the Bhuloka to attain higher lokas, whatever you asked for, Vrinitha, Yama Vrinitha, you asked for from Yama, from me, I have granted it. Yetam Agnim Tavaiva Pravakshanti Janasaha. People will know this ritual by your name. Janasaha means Janaha. It's a Vedic usage. Janasaha. Janasaha means Janaha. Pravakshanti will call this ritual, this Agnim, this ritual, Tavaiva, by your name. Then Tritiyam Varanachiketo Vrinishva. Tritiya Varam Vrinishva. Now, please ask me for the third boon that I have already granted to you, and I have to fulfill your third boon also. Therefore, Hey Nachiketa, please ask me for the third boon. And from here, actually from the 20th verse, with the asking of the third boon, actually Nachiketa starts asking for this Atmajnanam. Here, the third boon or the third vara, Nachiketa is asking for himself, and he is asking this vara in the form of self knowledge. And how does he start it? How does he start asking for this vara? See in the 20th verse, he says, he asks Yama, Yeyam prete vichikitsa manushye अस्तीत्येके नायमस्तीति चैके ये तद्विद्याम् अनुशिष्टस्त्वं स्त्वं याहं वराणां येष वरः तृतीयः. So what does Nachiketa say now? I am going to ask you for the third vara. Varanam yeshah varah tritiyah. The last line. Among the three varas, this will be the final vara that I am going to ask you. And what is this vara in the form of? I want you to teach me. Ye tat vidyam anushishtaha tvam yah aham tvaya aham anushishtaha tvaya aham. Okay, varanam yesha varaha tritiyah. He says, ye tad vidyam anushishtaha tvaya aham. That means what? Third line. Hey Yamadharmaraja, this is my third vara. I want to learn something from you. I want you to teach me something. This is what I want in the third vara. The third boon is what Nachiketa is asking for himself. The first boon was for the father's well-being. The second boon was for the well-being of the people of the Jagat, of Bhuloka, who are interested in gaining the higher lokas. But the third vara, Nachiketa is asking for himself in the form of knowledge. And he says, Hey Yamadharmaraja, you know this knowledge. I want to gain this knowledge from you. Please teach me Anushishta Tvaya Aham. I want to be educated by you on this particular aspect. What is it that I want to know? He talks about it in the first two lines. He says, Yeyam prete vichikitsa manushye. Manushye prete. When a human being dies, okay, vichikitsa, there is a vichikitsa, there is a doubt. What is that doubt? Asti iti eke nayam asti iti chaike. Now, once a person is dead and once a person is cremated, what is dead? The sthula shariram is dead. The sthula shariram is disposed of in different ways. Of course, here we take it as cremation. The Sthula Shariram is dead and the Sthula Shariram is cremated, disposed of. Now, there is a doubt that once the Sthula Shariram is gone, some people say there is something which remains other than the Sthula Shariram, which travels and gets other bodies. There are people who say nothing remains. There is no traveling, there is nothing that remains. Now, this doubt is there. Hey Yamadharmaraja, who can be better than you? You are the Lord of Death. You are the deity of death. You know what happens to a person who dies. Does the death of the physical body mean the end of this particular jiva? Is there anything left behind? Is there anything that travels? Or is there nothing? Is this over with the disposal of the body? Is this human being over? If so, then what is this Punarjanma about? Correct? So here Nachiketa wants to know, he says, Vichikitsa, yeyam vichikitsa. Vichikitsa means there is a great doubt. There are scholars who say that nothing remains. There are scholars who say that there is something which is left behind, which is called as the jiva, which travels, leaving the sthula sharira behind, exists in a very, very subtle form for the time being. And when the appropriate body is available to work out the next set of prarabdha karmas, this traveling jiva embodies itself into another body and comes back in the form of another jiva. This is one opinion. Another opinion is like the Charvakas and others. They say nothing remains, nothing travels. Buddhists, Buddhas, and Charvakas say body is gone, body is everything, body is gone, it is over, nothing else remains. Now, what is true out of this? Please, Yama, please tell me. I want to be Anushishta. That means I want to be educated by you. Now, in this, I have to tell you, as you know, as a small kind of a little bit of explanation on this particular verse. Now, we have already seen in Vivek Chudamani, we have read in Tattva Bodha, we have also seen it in Bhagavad Gita that when I say I, there are four things which I am talking about. There is a Sthula Sharira, there is a Sukshma Sharira, there is a Karana Sharira, and there is Atma. This is very clear to all of us. Sthula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, Karana Sharira, Atma. These four things are there. Now, Sthula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, and Karana Sharira are called Anatmas. And the Atma, the Nitya Shuddha Buddha Mukta Atma, I, Atma, Aham Asmi Atma, that Atma is the real ultimate Swarupam of me, which we have already seen. I am not the Anatma, Sthula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, Karana Sharira. I am the Sharira Traya Vyatirikta Atma. So there are four things here. Now, when a person dies, when a jiva dies, what happens? The Sthula Sharira ends here and now. The Sthula Sharira ends here and now. The Sukshma Sharira and Karana Sharira and Atma three are remaining now. All the three are not visible because they are extremely subtle. The Sukshma Sharira is also subtle. The Karana Shariram is also subtle. The Atma is the subtlest of all. We have seen that. Our scriptures say that out of these remaining three, the Sukshma Sharira and the Karana Sharira are subtle, not available for perception, they are not seen, but the Sukshma Sharira and the Karana Sharira, along with all the karma phalas, the Sanchita karma, travels. This Sukshma Sharira, Karana Sharira, karma bundle is called as the Jiva, traveling Jiva. It travels. Let us not worry where it travels, where it goes. That also the Upanishads talk about. Chandogya Upanishad talks about a particular concept called, not concept, a truth called as Panchagni Vidya, where what happens to this jiva? What happens to this Sukshma Karana Sharira with karma, that Jiva which leaves the physical body at the time of the death? What all phases it goes through till it finds another body? That is also talked about in Brahma Sutras, that's talked about in Chandogya Upanishad, and in various other scriptures it's talked about. So that is one thing. Now, there is Atma which is all pervading. Kshetrajnam chapi mam vidhi sarva kshetreshu bharata, which was told by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. This Atma, which is the all pervading Atma, this consciousness which is available everywhere, Sarvagatam, this Atma cannot travel anywhere. The Atma was there before this body came also. It is there when the body is here also. It will continue to be there. Atma Trikale api tishtati iti Sat Atma. Sat Chit Ananda Atma continues to exist irrespective of the Sthula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, and Karana Sharira. So, Atma is also extremely subtle, but it does not travel. Atma cannot travel, but it is the Sukshma Sharira, Karana Sharira together with the Karma Phala, which we call as Jiva, travels. It exists in another form, in the Sukshma form, till it finds another significant or suitable body to come back to go through the Prarabdha Karma. Now, what Nachiketa wants to know is basically he wants to know about the Atma. He will tell that later. How will he say? How do you know? You may say, Nachiketa may be asking about this traveling Jiva. He's saying there is something after this physical body is gone. One doubt is there. Some people doubt that nothing else is there. Hey Yama, you are the right person to give me this knowledge. Please tell me about that which remains after the physical body is gone. What is it that remains? Is there something that remains or nothing remains? Actually, what Nachiketa wants to know, he does not want to know about the traveling Jiva. Nachiketa wants to know about this non traveling Sarvagata Nitya Sat Chit Ananda Rupa Atma. So, this is the first question that the student is asking about Atma Jnana. In every Upanishad, the student asks the teacher a question to start the teaching of Atmajnanam. And the 20th verse of the first chapter, first section, is the initial question with which Nachiketa, the Shishya, is asking Yamadharmaraja, tell me about the Atma. What is that Atma which does not die with the body? What is that Atma which doesn't travel with the Jiva? What is that Atma which stays, remains as it is in all three periods of time? How do you know that he is asking about this Atma? In future, in the second section, we will know when Nachiketa specifically asked, Anyatra dharmat, Anyatra adharmat. He asked that question. I want to know that which is not influenced by anything, dharma, adharma, papa, punya, not affected by anything. I want to know about that. So, with that in mind, now we have to understand that this question which Nachiketa is asking Yama is the beginning of his teaching, where he is asking the Guru, please teach me about Atma. But then he asked this question in such a way, he says that there is always a doubt whether something remains after the physical body is gone, sorry, physical body is gone, dead, or nothing remains. He asked this question, and the teacher Yama is very, very clear and clever to know what Nachiketa wants. Now, Yamadharma Raja does not want to give in immediately. He does not want to start the teaching immediately. Why? Because Yamadharma Raja wants to test. He wants to see whether Nachiketa is really interested and he's an adhikari for this knowledge or not. So, initially, Yamadharmaraja tries to dissuade Nachiketa. He tries to dissuade Nachiketa and says, I will give you anything else, but don't ask for this. Don't ask for this vara. Don't force me to tell you about this vara. Anything else you ask. He tries his best to dissuade Nachiketa for the very reason why? Not because the Guru does not want to give this knowledge. The Guru wants to test the Shishya whether he is an adhikari for this knowledge. This knowledge is to be given only to an adhikari. Whether Nachiketa has the real interest or casual interest. Most of us have a casual interest in Vedanta because I know people who ask me, please teach me this Upanishad, please teach me that Upanishad. But when you start teaching the Upanishad, half of them drop out. Casual interest, that's it. A very casual interest. I also want to know what that Upanishad is. Start the Upanishad, half the people have lost interest. So, any Upanishadic teaching requires a commitment on the part of the teacher and a commitment on the part of the Shishya also. Therefore, Yamadharmaraja now wants to test Nachiketa whether Nachiketa's interest is casual or deep, whether Nachiketa really wants this knowledge or whether he is childishly asking for this knowledge because he is a child of 8 or 9 years. And therefore, Yamadharmaraja goes all the way out till the end of this section, till the 29th verse, we find that Yamadharmaraja is trying to dissuade Nachiketa from asking for this and says, take any other vara, don't ask me for this. Don't force me. He says in the 21st verse, he says, देवैरत्रापि विचिकित्सितं पुरा न हि सुज्ञेयमनुरेष धर्मः अन्यं वरं नचिकेतो वृणीष्व मामोपरोत्सीरतिमासृजैनम्. Hey Nachiketa, don't force me. Don't compel me to answer this question from your third vara. Anyam varam nachiketo vrinishva, third line. Please ask for any other vara. I will grant you any other wish. Ma moparotsirati ma srijainam. Don't compel me, the third line and fourth line. Don't compel me to grant you this boon. Don't compel me to teach you this. What is it that you are asking me? That we'll see in the next session because here I need to explain the first two lines of this mantra, 21st mantra, a little more in detail. But in the 21st mantra, what we see is Bhagwan Yama, the Acharya, has very clearly understood what Nachiketa is asking for, but he is not sure whether Nachiketa, the Shishya, is number one, an adhikari for this knowledge, number two, whether Nachiketa is prepared for this knowledge, number three, whether this interest in knowing this is casual or real. These three things he wants to know, and therefore, from this verse until the end of this particular section, it is a dialogue between Yamadharmaraja and Nachiketa where Yama is trying to dissuade Nachiketa from this question and asking him to look for another vara, and Nachiketa holding on to his vara saying that I want this only and nothing else, which we'll see in the next session. Om Nandantu Sadhaka Sarve Vinashyantu Vidushakaha Avastha Shambhavi Mestu Prasannostu Guru Sada Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukham Apnuyat. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat.